All right, let's go from one great guest to another one. My man, thank you for accepting this, Laith, especially at the last minute like this. Laith Marouf. Laith Marouf is an award-winning multimedia producer and media policy consultant focused on issues of liberation, decolonization from indigenous nations to Arab peoples, and building broadcasting capabilities to misrepresented, underrepresented communities. And you can follow Laith on Free Palestine TV. There's also Free Palestine Video, or that video, I should say. How you doing, man? You doing okay today?
Good. How about you, Jamal? Thank you for having me.
I'm doing okay. Dragging ass a little bit, but I'm okay. So this happened, and part of the reason that I actually come on early, as opposed to coming on tomorrow, was because of this. And I didn't know entirely what to think about this, and I was very curious on your take about this. This is Ministry of Defense and the presidential palace, apparently, getting bombed by Israel. And a very excited man.
قصف جديد
He's discussing it. That is so dramatic.
قصف جديد يا شباب قصف خذونا بسرعة.
Explain to us, for the American audience, why is that happening?
Well, it's just obviously there's a lot that people don't know about Syria, but to put it simply, if you look at the geography of Syria, there's the extreme east where Deir Zor is, there's the extreme west, the coast, and then there's the extreme south where Suwaida is. And those three regions have been the incubator of revolt and revolution in Syrian history, including the Great Syrian Revolt against French occupation. It started from Suwaida, the Druze area led by Sultan Amir al-Atrash, and he's the head of, at that time, of the Druze sect, and the Alawites in the coast, and the Bedouin tribes in Deir Zor, including my great uncle, who was one of the leaders of the revolution in Syria against French occupation. So what the Americans have done over the last 15 years is, on the one hand, destroy Deir Zor and the Arab tribes in the east and hand over their lands to the Kurdish invaders, occupiers, and thus destroying their capability to resist. Just since the fall of the Assad government, we saw the massacres of the Alawites and the destructions of their homes and their businesses and the killing of their doctors and engineers and so forth, to also bring them down. And the final step was to crush the Druze in the Suwaida area, so they don't rise up. And so that was the plan. And we saw the attack by the Al-Jolani government on Suwaida. But what had happened is that the Druze actually fought back. They were ready, after seeing what happened in the coast, to fight back. And they defeated the invading Wahhabi death squads. There's at least something like 900 of those mercenaries killed over the last few days. And this is where the US and Israel have a backup plan. If Jolani cannot govern, and he cannot really govern the country, he cannot keep it together, then they need to make sure that whoever takes over from him, specifically if it's patriotic Syrians like the ones in Suwaida or in the coast and so forth, that they will have no government structures or institutions to be able to manage a state. So the attacks on the Ministry of Defense, the attacks on the presidential palace, the attacks on over the last 6 months on all of the other institutions of the state are designed to make sure that in the case of Al-Jolani falling, which he cannot govern, that nobody else can.
Okay, but Israel, okay. So What do you say to people who make the argument that the Druze community is associated with Israel? They were setting fires in Israel. They were burning, blowing stuff up in order to get Israel to respond and act. And Israel didn't respond that way when they were killing Alawites. They didn't respond that way when they were killing Christians. They are responding this way now that they're killing Druze. Are you saying that's coincidence? Oh, because it seems like they are doing this in response to the killing of the Druze ethnic community.
Yeah, so we've heard this for 15 years that Israel is protecting Assad, okay? And that somehow these Wahhabi death squads are the ones that really are against Israel. And, since the beginning of the fall of the Assad government, since January, these Wahhabi death squads had a chance to confront the Zionist expansion of occupation and so on. It didn't happen. So this is a repeated propaganda point to distract from the reality that the HTS government is delivering on a plan A, plan B, plan C. They can change those plans depending on what the West and the Zionists think they can achieve. But we have indicators, clear evidence that the Druze population in Syria, number one, have come out, the leadership of the Druze sect over the last 48 hours, multiple times, statements that are written, statements that are recorded and broadcasted saying they do not want the help of the Zionists and they are the enemy. Their number one enemy is the Zionist, okay? And they will not work with the Wahhabi death squads either. And we also saw the Syrian Druze population inside the occupied Golan Heights break through the quote-unquote border fence,
Right.
pick up trucks and everything with machine guns and head towards Suwaida to defend their brothers and sisters and head towards Jaramana, which is the neighborhood in south of Damascus that is mainly Druze. And of those people that crossed from the occupied Golan Heights into Suwaida was one of the main leaders of the Druze sect, the Syrian Druze sect inside occupied Palestine and the Golan Heights. And he came out saying that they refuse till today, as Syrians that are occupied inside the Golan have been offered since 1967 citizenship, have refused it. They do not want, and that will be working with their brothers and sisters to return their lands that are occupied in the Golan Heights. So those are clear indications that the Druze actually are the most patriotic in this situation.
Okay, I don't doubt that they aren't patriotic. And yes, I have seen them effectively fighting the death squads that are trying to ethnically cleanse all of these different groups, them included. But it did seem like there was some relationship between Israel and the Druze community. I don't doubt that many of the leadership will come out and say that. But are you saying that when the Druze community is setting fire in occupied Gaza, saying, hey, help our brothers out, and then Israel bombs Syria, that those things are unrelated to one another? And by the way, I'm asking because I don't understand. I'm trying to understand what's taking place. This is complicated to me.
Okay, so the Druze population inside what is now Israel is split into two parts. There's the Palestinian Druze, and those serve in the Israeli military and are part of the government.
Okay.
And they are the ones that were burning tires.
I see. Okay.
And then there's the Druze Syrians that are in the Golan Heights that have refused to take citizenship and view themselves as actually one of the main sources of the Syrian identity.
I see.
Okay? Because, there's the history, as I told you, Sultan al-Atrash, the prince of the Druze, leading the revolt against the French occupation. So there's no, they see themselves clearly differently, and they are not going to collaborate with the Zionists, and they will not allow the Wahhabi tools of imperialism to also govern, that's for sure.
Now, But the argument, okay, so are you making the argument that this is somehow beneficial to the HTS government that they are being attacked?
No, 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 no. I'm saying to
Okay.
you, look, the West and the Zionists brought into power Al-Jolani.
Right.
But this man is an outsider to the whole of the country in terms of the majority, even of the Sunnis, are Sufi. Almost 90% of Sunnis in Syria are Sufi, meaning they're from the mystic sect of Sunni Islam. They're not Wahhabis. He doesn't look like them. And the government that he's bringing in doesn't, and so he doesn't represent the Druze, the Shia, the Alawis, the Christians, and the upper class, the financial elite of Aleppo and Damascus that are, liberal, as all of the upper classes in the rest of the world are. So there is no way he can govern. What they had hoped he can do is crush any resistance spirit in the Syrian people that is left. And that is why we have those mass rape campaigns. Okay. And these, total bloodline erasures. Okay. To destroy any possibility of anybody having something in their family that reminds them of rebellion or steadfastness. So look at what they did in this HTS when they entered Sueda city, and this is why the response was, they went into the national hospital, government hospital in Sueda city, and they killed all the doctors, all the nurses, and all the patients. 350 doctors, nurses, and patients all slaughtered, okay, inside the hospital. Why would you do that? Does the hospital have anything to do with Druze rebellion? Yeah, so its issue is showing this, making sure the spirit of Syrian people is broken. This is it's the same way of seeing those Palestinian prisoners being raped. They release those videos on purpose. They want to break the spirit of Palestinian resistance. And because he's unable to govern for long, they were hoping he can achieve on breaking the spirit of the various communities inside Syria that see themselves as wells or springs of revolution. And he failed in Sueda. So if he fails in Sueda, other minorities could now get their head up and start fighting also, right? So they need to have a plan B ready. If Al-Jolani is not able to deliver on breaking the spirit of every Syrian, and there's still resistance to him and he cannot govern the territories, then they want to make sure that nobody else can govern if they take over. So if there's a revolution and Al-Jolani falls and a patriotic government comes into power, they will find that there's not even any ministries left to govern from. Okay, this is what the destruction of Damascus over the last 2 days by Israel is about.
I see. They want to make a failed state if Jolani can't keep it together effectively. What's wild about that is Marco Rubio said exactly what you said, that he didn't think that Syria was going to be able to keep together under Jolani. I mean, he said that under Senate testimony, which is pretty astonishing when you think about it, that they helped put the guy in power. I want to read something to you that Jolani said when he gave his speech. He said, our people rose up in a revolution to attain freedom, and that triumphant and tremendous sacrifices, the people remains fully prepared to fight for their dignity should it come under any threat. Mind you, Israel has been bombing Syria ever since Golani has taken over, and yet he hasn't fired one shot in anger. It says the Israeli entity which has sought to destabilize us, to sow discord among us since the fall of the former regime, is once again trying to turn our sacred and into an endless arena of chaos. Through this, it aims to fracture our people, unity, and weaken our ability to continue the path for reconstruction and national revival. I'm amazed by the speech. Jolani and his dogs have been murdering ethnic, religious communities the entire time that they've been there. and he's using this term of we. Some of these people are Chechen, some of these people are Uyghurs, some of these people are, it's like from any grab bag part of the world, with your motley crew terrorists came into the country, and now he's using this term of we. Give me a take on that. I mean, and maybe that's not really a take thing. I'm just amazed by the speech. How do Syrians view this? Like, when they hear him give that speech, and he's saying stuff like this, when they know, okay, you've been murdering us, you've been sending your death squads to go kill all of these different groups, you've been waging these wars. What do they think in Syria about what he's saying in the speech?
The fall of the Assad government basically was the last fig leaf that was covering the collaboration of these Wahhabi death squads or the power of their propaganda. Yeah. So, as you mentioned, since the minute Assad fell, the government, the Israelis have been attacking almost on a daily basis. And, we were told for a decade that Israel protects Assad. Okay, that Assad is collaborating. This is the propaganda that the Wahhabis were pumping in Al Jazeera and Al Arabiya and all of those Gulf television stations. And so everybody just now understands. There's no need actually for somebody to remind people of the statements of President Assad or the resistance here about that these Wahhabis are going to collaborate with the Zionists and that the country is going to be destroyed at their hands. And the other thing is that, of course, Al-Jolani not only destroyed with his war much of the structures of the state in Syria, but since the fall of Assad, they have targeted all the soldiers and officers that worked in the air defense systems of Syria. So either they were killed or disappeared. And then the Israelis came and destroyed much of the air defense systems in that 24 hours largest ever air raid campaign by Israel. And now the country has no air defense systems, and all because of Al-Jolani. And now he's talking about Israel trying to break up the country. It's very stupid, obviously,
Orwellian. It's such a bizarre speech. It's like, dude,
he's been calling the Shia heretics, the Shia and the Christians and the Druze and the Alawis. They've been calling them heretics for more than a decade. Now we're talking about our minorities, our Druze brothers.
That's such a bizarre speech. I don't even live there, and I know that's a bizarre speech. And I'm like, how do you have kill squads literally murdering in mass ethnic minorities? You don't fire a shot in anger against Israelis, meaning at no point do you go after the Israelis at all. And yet when they bomb you, then all of a sudden you make the speech as if you're talking to a president, talking to a country that's united around you. That is so bizarre. It's just such a bizarre speech. I mean, it gets weirder, like the further you go into the speech, but it's no point in me reading the entirety of that part. So I guess from here on out, what is your expectation here? That Syria falls, it turns into somewhat of a failed state. I would imagine Israel takes a larger share of it, further balkanizing it. Or do you see something else taking place?
I have much more hope because of the history of Syria. And it's clear, Al-Jolani will not be able to govern for much longer. And the Israelis have huge delusions about occupying the south of Syria or getting to Suwaida, basically all the way to the Iraqi border,
right?
Which would be a territory, almost 2/3 the size of Palestine, right? So, and the Israeli military is exhausted, overstretched, collapsing, all its seasoned soldiers dead or maimed. We can see how they're unable to occupy Gaza, and they're still fighting there. So you could imagine them trying to stretch into the south of Syria, and what would that mean to them? So they can have a lot of illusions about, and dreams. I mean, when you're a supremacist, you think you can do anything. And in fact, it would be better if they try to invade further and try to reach Suwaida. They'll be much easier target. There'll be many more dead. And as we are, this rebellion in Suwaida, lasts long, it will, over the next few months, we will see the Druze in Suwaida try to reach Germana neighborhood in Damascus to protect the rest of the Druze there. And that will mean like more parts of the country fall out of Al-Jolani's hold. And that will also trigger resistance in the coast again, as the Wahhabi squads are trying to fight in the south. And who knows what's going to happen in the resort. So I see a future that is where a revolution in Syria is more likely, and a patriotic revolution is more likely than breakup of the country as the U.S. wants it to happen.
Do you see the Druze or some of these other communities and them pushing back, kind of like an immune system? Like if you have a, let's say like a transplant, if you have an immune system response from, I don't know, you catch a cold, your immune system pops up, it starts looking around and saying, hey, what else is there? Oh, there's an organ, let me go after it. It shouldn't be here. Do you see something like that happening with Israel, where you have this response that are coming in from the minority communities, let's say specifically in this case, the Druze? I saw that speech that you were referring to where the guy said, would they blame Israel, Zionists, for allowing Golani to take Syria over and take down Assad? Do you see them going after Israel at some point? I mean, Golani and his dogs aren't going to do it, but do you see some of the more patriotic Syrians in their pushback against Golani's government also going after the Zionists?
Well, you see, this is where the delusions of the Zionists are going to lead them into huge pitfalls. And one of those pitfalls is that they broke the border themselves between the occupied Golan Heights and occupied further more territory in the foothills of the Golan Heights and the Qalamun mountain range, all the way almost to Damascus. And they were trying to push towards Suwaida. And these are all, which now allowed the Syrians that were hostage since 1967 inside the Golan Heights, cut off from their extended families, to also breach the border and for the first time have family reunions. And as you saw that video of the leader of the Syrian Druze in the Golan Heights, talk about attack on Syria and by Israel and where we at, because of this. And this means right now also that there is a porous border, right? And if there's all this militancy for decades, that hasn't been crushed inside the Druze population in the Golan Heights, and now have an extended space to move in South Syria, where there is weapons littering the whole landscape that you can just pick up almost. They're selling you at the kilo price, basically, weapons. So for sure, there will be ramifications of more militancy spilling into the Golan Heights. The other thing is that the Zionists and the Americans have spoken right now about reunification of Syria so many times, including the envoy of Trump, Barak, when he was trying to threaten Lebanon. He was like, oh, well, Lebanon is just the tourist destination of Syria, or the tourism district of Syria, and that Sykes-Picot was wrong to. So they are allowing right now a space to return to unification movements like the Syrian National Social Party and others. So I think now people can imagine possibilities of unification of Syria under anti-colonial terms. And of course, what that would mean to Palestine is a big thing.
Well, what does that mean for Palestine?
you know, Syria was the strongest Arabic army
Ally.
and was managed to survive all those plots. Now imagine it with Lebanon and its economy to it, and who knows what's going to happen in Iraq if these things.
Oh, I see.
Look, you see the space of erasing Psychos-Pico that started with the U.S. actually normalizing ISIS, the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria. And we saw ISIS, erase the Psychos-Pico border.
Yes.
And you know what? If Iran and the Syrian military and Hezbollah didn't fight ISIS and defeat them, the U.S. would have been fine with them creating a new state, just like they were fine with Al-Jolani, who was the second in command of ISIS, governing from Damascus.
Right.
It's fine for them to erase the Psychos-Pico border as long as it's beneficial to them. And so, but now we're 20 years of this American-led destruction of Psychos-Pico's borders. Now there's almost no more states in Iraq and Syria. There's really no states in Iraq and Syria, and things are wide open. The field is wide open, and the reality is that you can unify those countries now because there's no existing central state that can fight you back if you want to do that.
Interesting. Very interesting. Laith, you are fantastic. I love your breakdowns. I totally misunderstood when I initially thought you meant that this was somehow beneficial to HTS. That's not really what you're saying. You were pointing out of saying if HTS can't keep it together, then the U.S. is perfectly fine with having a failed state. But as you point out, you're far more optimistic about it because they think that this is going to be a failed state, where I think you think that ultimately these groups are going to come together and you may get a revolutionary Syria as opposed to Syria that implodes and gets balkanized. I think I got that right. I just want to, before I let you go, I want to make sure I understood.
Yes, for sure. And look, last week this Barak was threatening Lebanon with HTS.
Yes.
Today, HTS is clearly have been clipped. It cannot fight even the Druze in a remote area of Syria. How can it fight Hezbollah? And in fact, all of what we saw of massacres in the coast, that now massacres of Druze, have radicalized a huge swath of the population, including the Druze here in Lebanon. Yesterday, Lebanese people, Druze Lebanese, carried arms openly and were at the border trying to cross. They had fist fights with the Lebanese military. Okay, so this is a population, the Druze population in Lebanon haven't been involved in fighting since the year 2000 maybe. Okay, there's no been armed militias there. Now there is. It's clearly radicalizing people the opposite way that the U.S. wants. Instead of putting fear into people, mind here, it's actually telling people that you either carry arms and survive or you're dead. I'm going to send the HTS on you to rape you and your family. Okay? So this similarly happened in the Christian population. Right now it's happening in the Christian population that people are starting to form militias. Any dormant militias are being activated. Everybody's ready to fight to protect themselves from HTS and the possibilities of also Israel attacking. So everything that Israel and the U.S. is doing in hopes of destroying the spirit of resistance in the region is actually reconfirming in everybody's mind that if you do not resist, you're going to be raped live on television. Nobody's going to come and help you.
Basically, take your protection into your own hands, or else. Laith, man, thank you for this great breakdown. I like I said, I was confused when I saw this. I wasn't sure what to think of this. Israel, I hope these guys get in power. Golani has been bending over backwards, trying to kiss his ass like nobody's business, and yet he's still being bumped. No, I appreciate this, man. Laith Marouf, he's an award-winning multimedia producer and media policy consultant. You can find Laith at Free Palestine TV, or you can find him at freepalestine.video. Either one of those. Free Palestine TV is on Twitter, freepalestine.video. You can find him online. Laith, thank you for this, man. You be safe, okay?
See you soon.
Have a good one. All right.